Okay. Thanks everyone for joining me. We'll get started here in just a second. I just want to let everyone know up front that I am expecting a phone call. I just don't know what time, so it could occur during this live stream. I'll probably be going to around 2 o'clock, and then I got stuff to going on. But I thought it was important to do because I'm absolutely furious about the fact that Comey didn't get prosecuted. Now look, there's a long line of things. There's three things that's happened in the past couple weeks that have made me lose basically all faith in Attorney General Barr. Now let me just preface this by saying, yes, I understand things could change at any time. Barr, we have the bigger IG report that's going to be coming out, and it's going to show all sorts of criminality that occurred and shadiness that occurred from actors in the FBI and the intelligence community under Barack Obama, and that will become exposed. I've been talking about that, I feel, as well as anyone since early 2017. I was writing, in October 2017, I wrote about how if it's true that we used opposition research is to get a FISA warrant to spy on a presidential candidate's campaign, then it was the biggest political scandal in the history of the country. That's exactly happened. So don't get me wrong. I've been talking about how this corruption is out there and how I believe it'll be exposed. But the problem is, just like with the 2008 financial crisis, you can expose corruption till you're blue in the face. If no one gets punished, if the corrupt don't get punished, then nothing ever changes. That's exactly why we're going to see a retake of the financial collapse, because all of these bankers got incredibly wealthy, engaged in illegal and unethical behavior, and then they didn't get any punishment whatsoever. In fact, when they lost money, we, the taxpayer, bailed them out. It's the same with this crap. We can continually point out, here, all these intel agencies behaved, Brennan and Clapper and McCabe, Comey, Strzok and Page and Bruce Orr. They all behaved with criminality and unethically. Who cares if they never get punished? Do you think they're just going to go, oh, darn it, shame on us. I guess next time we'll be ethical. You think the people that replace them are going to, oh, okay, well, we're different. No. It'll be the same story that it's always been. That's what disappoints me so much. So let's go through the three stories. The first is the Epstein situation, which I know this isn't specifically Trump or Barr's fault or anything like that, but it just goes to show how at the top tier there is no justice. Everybody knew that this man was attacked or tried to kill himself. Everybody was saying he ain't going to make it to trial. Too many people want him dead. Yet for some inexplicable reason, he's taken off suicide watch. There's no cameras on his cell. The guards just happened to fall asleep. Barr comes out and tells us, yep, it's just he killed himself. A big whoopsie, that's all it is. The media tells us, don't be a conspiracy theorist. You have to believe the official story. And everyone was telling me at the time, well, it doesn't matter because surely all of these jails have cameras in the hallways. So we'll at least be able to see outside of his cell during the point when he was killed, whether he was killed or committed suicide. So we'll see if anything shady was going on outside. Now what's the reports coming out? Who would have thought it? At least two of the cameras outside his cell were malfunctioning. And we have to believe this crap? So that's the first thing. The second thing is Joe DeGenova, who's this former prosecutor who has been one of Trump's most voracious defenders. And he's been very good, by the way, pointing out a lot of the corruption that we'll see. He's been pointing it out for 2 years. You see him on places like Hannity all the time. And he's been right on most of his predictions of exactly what was going on. The FISA abuses, the abuses with Papadopoulos and sending spies in with him. How Misfit was probably a Western intelligence asset. Like, a lot of this stuff he said, it just came true. So, he was being interviewed on a radio show here last week. And he said that basically the Inspector General's all but done with his report on the FISA abuse. Just for those of you that might not understand, the Inspector General's done a series of reports. He did one just on the Hillary investigation. The one we just saw was just on Comey's actions, releasing these memos. And now he's doing a bigger one on the entire Russia investigation. This is apparently complete, but you have to show it to a bunch of people in Congress, a bunch of people in the DOJ and the FBI. Basically, a bunch of people get to see it to see if they want material redacted, etc., before it could be released for public consumption. And so apparently it's in that phase, and what Joe's claiming is that he has talked to people that have had access to this that said that all 4 FISA applications are going to be ruled to be illegal. Now, that's incredible. Again, that is the biggest political scandal in the history of our country. We used Hillary Clinton paid for opposition research so that Barack Obama's intel agencies could spy on Trump's campaign. And not only was it never verified, it's now illegal. That the people, and by illegal, they're going to mean that evidence was withheld from the judge on the FISA court. You have to be totally forthcoming with these courts in order to get your warrant. And so the claims are, and we'll have to see, my take on it was, well, let's see what the IG report says, because reporting could be wrong. But that was the take on it. And I think that that is most likely to be the case, but we'll see. However, Joe says at the end of this interview, the radio guy interviewing him says, when can we expect to see prosecutions? When can we start to see indictments? And Joe goes, oh, well, I don't know that we'll see any indictments. Because here's the thing, Barr's just all about outing the corruption. And he wants to restore faith in agencies like the FBI. But he also realizes that there's a political cost with charging people. And so, he's just, his number one priority is just outing the corruption to the people. But we don't know that, he probably won't charge anyone. That is ridiculous. How can you restore faith in these organizations if you don't punish the criminals in them? If I mishandle classified information, I'd go to jail. If I deleted subpoenaed information, I'd go to jail. If I lied to a court in order to get surveillance on someone, I'd go to jail. If I leaked FBI material to the press, I'd go to jail. But we're told, oh, well, for politics, we can't charge these people. But we're restoring faith in the agency. Garbage. It is absolute ridiculous garbage. And then we find out that the story, despite the IG report recommending Comey for prosecution, Barr, and remember, this is Trump's handpicked guy, is refusing to prosecute. Those three stories, again, I'm not saying maybe the bigger IG report comes out, maybe Barr does decide to prosecute, but I'm losing faith. And there's so many people, good people that I think are good people, intelligent in many cases, that are utterly convinced that there's this grand 4D chess plan from Trump and his people. And so no matter what, it's all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan. Don't worry. Not prosecuting Comey for these crimes, all part of the plan. How long do we go before people realize, this plan sucks then? Here's what we know about the plan. The plan's got Trump allies sitting in solitary confinement. It's got their offices being raided. Got them spending years in jail. Meanwhile, the plan, we know that people like Hillary, Mills, Aberdeen lied to the FBI. We know that their team deleted subpoenaed evidence by Congress. We know that people like the Podesta Group failed to register as a foreign lobbyist with Manafort. Manafort got charged. Podesta got to file retroactive paperwork. We know that people like Comey, Brennan, Clapper have lied to the FBI and haven't been punished. We know that McCabe's lied to the FBI and so far hasn't been punished, though I'll talk about McCabe a little more because I expect he will be punished. We lost the 2018 election, in large part because people still believe that Trump was a Russian agent. So what? We're going to just lose until 2040, and then all of a sudden, once Comey's in the grave, we'll say, oh, by the way, now we would have charged Comey. Tisk, tisk. We hurt his reputation. And I keep hearing that, oh, well, Comey's reputation shattered. It's shattered now after the report. Yeah, it shattered so much. It damaged Comey so much that he's bragging yesterday, demanding apologies on Twitter. Go to Twitter right now. You know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing people I respect, like Jonathan Haidt at Heterodox Academy, retweeting comments from intelligent people that happen to be on the left that are saying, oh, Barr and Trump, they've destroyed all the rule of law. The story is they're criminal, not Comey. That's the story today. All these people, everyone on the left that control the public narrative, not everyone, but many of them, they don't care. The only people that think that Comey's reputation's hurt are the people that didn't like him in the first place. And people said, can you believe Comey had the nerve to come out and demand an apology? Yes, I could believe he had the nerve. Why wouldn't he? He's on an incredible winning streak. So let's see what he did, what's going on with Comey. So after he, by his own admission, comes out a week before the election and says, by the way, we're reopening an investigation into Hillary Clinton. Now, why did he do that? Because whistleblowers in the FBI were going above Comey's head saying, we've been sitting on Anthony Weiner's laptop for 2 months. Why is nothing being done about it? And so finally, it was going to come out before or after the election that the FBI withheld from the American people. They acted like the case was closed when it wasn't. So Comey admitted the reason he announced the reopening the investigation, and they were able to go through what? Hundreds of thousands of emails in like 3 days? Which is garbage in its own right. But the reason they did that was he assumed Hillary would win, and he didn't want this being an albatross around her neck during her first term. Because he knew if this came out 3-4 weeks after she was elected, Trump and all of his supporters would say, see, the FBI again covered for Hillary. And he didn't want that to be the case. So he figured she had it in the bag so much, he'd just come out and say, yeah, we're reopening it. Then they'd thumb through hundreds of thousands of emails in 3 days. Now keep in mind, this is the same FBI that every time a Freedom of Information Act is requested, they go to court and say, oh, we don't have the resources to go through these emails. We can only go through like 500 a day. It's very complicated. It's a very, to go through and make sure that nothing needs to be redacted, it's very complicated. They could do 500 a day when it comes to us, the American people, having transparency. But when it comes to possibly charging Hillary Clinton with crimes, zip, and exonerating her, 3 days to get through them all. Hundreds of thousands. That's what we were told. But the left's narrative is still, oh, Comey, he was in the bag for Trump, for the Republicans. He cost Hillary the election. Maybe he did, by being honest. But he was still, in his way, trying to help Hillary. He admitted as much. Just because his attempt to help her backfired doesn't mean he wasn't attempting to help. So you're sitting there. You're James Comey. Trump wins. You hate the man. The IG report admits this as much. Before he recorded the first memo, when he went in and talked about the P dossier, right? Now we know from all sorts of reporting, I've done videos on this previously. CNN, where Brennan works, who was the former head of the CIA at the time, they're sitting on this P dossier and they're like, look, we can't run this story unless we have a hook. We need it because otherwise, even lowly CNN, you can't. At that point, now they wouldn't care, but at that point, they weren't going to just publish an unconfirmed rumor. But if the president was briefed on this rumor, then the story becomes, here's this P rumor out there, and clearly the intel agency's taking it seriously because they briefed Trump. So Brennan goes to Comey and a bunch of other people and is like, you need to have a one-on-one meeting. The IG report shows this. You need to have a one-on-one meeting with Trump about the P dossier, which Comey does, and then that meeting gets leaked to CNN, which then becomes the reason to run the story. Which it seems clear that Brennan, possibly Comey could have been unknowing, leaked this to CNN, so they said have the meeting, and then use the meeting as an excuse to get this information in public to hurt Trump. But I digress. What the IG report specifically says that I want to talk about here is that he's meeting with Baker and McCabe and Rebecca and all these people, all the higher-ups at the FBI, and they're like, oh yeah, you got to go in and one-on-one and talk about the P dossier, but make sure you keep memos of everything because basically Trump might incriminate himself or other people. In other words, it was a witch hunt from the get-go. Unverified crap. Comey himself admitted, unverified and salacious. That's the only part he told Trump about. But they had to make sure he didn't incriminate himself. Meanwhile, he's telling Trump the whole time, you're not under investigation. Meanwhile, they're withholding the fact that his team's under investigation for possibly being infiltrated by Russians. Now, look at the difference between how it was handled with that, which, by the way, we now know after 3 years wasn't true. They weren't being infiltrated by Russians. There was nothing illegal going on, compared to someone like Dianne Feinstein, who actually was infiltrated by Chinese. Did the FBI then decide to wiretap people connected to Feinstein, to send spies like Stephen Halper or Azra Turk, or professors like Joseph Mifsud that we're going to find out were connected to Western intelligence to try to get her in some sort of entrapment scheme? No! They went to her immediately and said, Chinese have infiltrated your camp. We're going to help you get them out. And she wasn't under any scrutiny whatsoever. But trust them. Trust the FBI. Trust Comey. They were all about just stopping Russia influence. Then why wouldn't you tell Trump? They admit Trump wasn't under investigation at the time. Why wouldn't you tell Trump low-level people connected to you may have been infiltrated by the Russians? Because it was all about getting Trump from the get-go. Because they hated him. Because like Chuck Schumer went on national television and told everyone, you can't criticize the intel community, Mr. Trump. They'll find 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. That's exactly what was going on. And the proof's in the IG report, again, as if we haven't seen proof after proof after proof, that they were all like, oh yeah, take notes. Make sure Trump doesn't incriminate himself. Comey admitted, The P stuff was all salacious and unverified. But still, they had to make sure that they trying to get Trump to incriminate himself with this. So from the get-go, it was all garbage. Yet despite all that, despite the IG report showing all that, now this is where we're at, right? This is where we're at with Comey. When he's going into this meeting, he's hated by the Democrats. That's the people he loves. Who are the Democrats? It's not just the Democrats. It's also they control the mainstream media. They control the entertainment industry. They control academia. They control Silicon Valley. All the people that matter to Comey hate him because they think that he cost Hillary the election. So now here's his big chance. Well, I can harm Trump as much as possible. And it worked. Because you remember all those Democrats that said Comey needs to be fired. Comey's terrible. All of a sudden they were furious when Trump fired Comey. It worked for him. Comey got everything he wanted out of this, out of keeping these memos and releasing them. Let's see what he got. He admits the reason he did it was he wanted a special counsel appointed. So the entire basis for the special counsel, we now know, not only was it laws that were broke, even though they weren't prosecuted, but FBI policy that was broke. The entire special counsel investigation started based on a breaking of FBI policy. Let that sink in. 3 years of stymieing Trump's administration, all because the people at the head of the FBI broke policy and probably broke the law. So Comey's like, I want a special counsel. He gets that. Not only does he get that, he gets his friend and mentor, Bob Mueller, to be the one in charge of it. And not only that, but Mueller then appoints almost exclusively all Democrats, including people that have worked with the Clinton Foundation, that have donated to Hillary, even people like Weissman that was at Hillary's election night party. Comey couldn't have been more thrilled. He got exactly what he wanted on that. And then, what else did he get? We got a book deal. He became a millionaire, selling books. Great for Comey. And then, all those people that hated him, he's a hero now. Now he's getting interviewed by Stephanopoulos. Now he's getting interviewed on MSNBC. And he's a hero. Yay, the great man who tried to take down Trump. And then after all that, he might be biting his fingernails a little going, but the downside is, maybe I could get in legal trouble. Nope! No legal trouble. So if you're on that kind of winning streak, you're damn right. If I was Comey, I would have demanded an apology. I'd have demanded an apology, money, Medal of Honor, my job back, demand Trump resign. Why not? What's the lesson to James Comey? You broke the law, and you're a hero. The people that you like now worship you. They think you're great. Even after the IG report comes out. And I told people this. I was talking to them. They're like, oh, his reputation's in shatters. To who? Who's his reputation in shatters to? The people that already thought he sucked? Yep, we have more proof that he sucked. Yay! Go to Twitter right now. Tune on CNN or MSNBC. You see anybody in Hollywood complaining about Comey? Nope. To them, they're all making excuses. Well, yeah, he went against protocol, but he didn't commit a crime. And, Trump's so bad, sometimes you have to go against protocol. McCabe's reputation was shattered, too. Where'd that land him? Oh, yeah, job at CNN. Poor McCabe. Poor Comey. Oh, those poor millionaires making money after they break the law and getting everything that they want. But then I watched because I can't believe it. I can't believe that no one's got the same take as me. Yes, I mean, of course there are people, but I'm waiting for the bigger people. Anyone on Fox News furious about this? Nope. Tucker, as always, is the best of the group that was like, isn't this evidence of a two-tier justice system? Why don't these people never get charged? Hannity, even him who's, one of Trump's biggest supporters. What did he do? He had people on, he brought on Joe Genova and his life. And Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch. And Tom Fitton's like, it is ridiculous that Barr didn't prosecute. He's got my opinion on it. And what does Joe Genova and all them say? Oh, no. It was good for him not to prosecute. It was good for him not to prosecute. Why? You think things are going to change? Well, we've been outing corruption for how long? Look at the Epstein thing. Could you be a more blatant outing of corruption? Now we know all the cameras malfunction. Is it changing anything? Is the culture going to change? Are the pedophiles that were working with Epstein, are they somehow in more trouble today because of that? But we're just told, shut up and take it. Hillary Clinton, that corruption was released, right? She had a private server. They deleted subpoenaed evidence. The guy that deleted the evidence was on Reddit the day before he deleted it, asking people to take a very VIP's name off the email change. Yet still, all the corruption was made public. And the FBI said, here's all the corruption. James Comey stood up and said, here's all the corruption. But no one got charged. Things going to change? That was what? 2016. So things are better at the FBI now, right? Oh, wait, no. They're still stonewalling. Oh, wait, no. They're still getting away with being corrupt. They're still, just as Chuck Schumer said, untouchable, unelected bureaucrats that even the most powerful, free elected person in the world has to fear. Nothing has changed. Why? Because none of them were punished. But this time it's different. Oh, no, it's different this time. Oh, they're embarrassed. Woo, the FBI's embarrassed. James Comey's embarrassed. So embarrassed he's demanding apologies on Twitter. Woo, we got him. All right, high five. I'm disgusted. And I don't care. My stance from the beginning of the Russia investigation was, if Trump committed crimes, lock him up. Manafort didn't register as a foreign lobbyist? Fine. Papadopoulos lied to the FBI? Fine. Flynn lied to the FBI? Fine. Lock him up. All I want is equal application of the law. And every single time, we find out that people against Trump committed the exact same crimes that the people connected to Trump committed. And in every single case, the people connected to Trump are gone after as hard as possible and charged, and the people against Trump are let go with a slap on the wrist. Every single time. Paul Manafort worked with the Podesta Group, lobbying for a pro-Russian Ukrainian president. Neither filed as foreign lobbyists. Paul Manafort is arrested, charged, and sitting in prison in part because of that. The Podesta Group got to file paperwork retroactively. The exact same crime committed with the exact same people. We know from FBI notes that Hillary lawyers Mills and Abedin lied to the FBI when they said they had no knowledge whatsoever of Hillary Clinton's server until after her tenure as Secretary of State. Yet we have emails from them talking about that server in 2010, before and during her tenure as Secretary of State. That is a lie to the FBI. They weren't charged. We have FBI notes that said that they thought it defied credulity when Hillary Clinton said she thought a C on the documents meant alphabetical order and not classified. In other words, she lied to the FBI. Was she charged? Nope. We know Brennan lied. We know Clapper lied to both the Congress. Now we know Comey lied to Congress. They're still foaming at the mouth about obstruction of justice for firing Comey and for mean tweets. Hillary's team deleted subpoenaed evidence. No comment. It's every single time. And if Trump appointed Barr, his hand-picked guy, who is refusing to prosecute these people when even the Inspector General recommends that prosecution and refers for that prosecution, then Trump has no one to blame but himself. I'm sorry. Why is someone like me, in my free time that works 60, 70 hours a week, why am I more passionate about it than Trump? Why am I doing a better job of defending it than his people that are out there? Yeah, you're right, Tom. But nonetheless, it was a classification marker, the C. There's top secret, there's confidential, I forget all of them. But she knew it didn't mean alphabetical order. So, yeah, I don't know what the celebration is. Trust the plan. Yep, looking good so far. How'd that 2018 election go? And by the way, let me just sidetrack here for a little bit. So I've been trying to work with Republicans, because I ran as a Republican, and I'm trying to help the Republicans win the state I'm in, Pennsylvania, in 2020. Where's the passion? Where's people out there defending anything? Where's people talking about this corruption? Where's people reaching out to the average person that doesn't really follow politics? I feel like I'm a lone voice. I mean, there's some out there. I've met some congressmen that are good. And there's certainly people that I've worked with that are good. My buddy Tom that's on here now that helped run my campaign, he did more to help the Republicans, and he's a Democrat. Just because he was helping me out. I just don't get it. We just got to keep a point. Yeah, I guess. Leave the criminals there. And by the way, it shouldn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. At all. It should not matter. You should not want the people that run these intel agencies to be breaking the law to go after people that they arbitrarily dislike. Because I'll bet most Democrats even, they're probably sick and tired of being lied to too. I'm guessing most of the people that voted for Barack Obama probably were tired of like the warmongering of George W. Bush. I know I was. And yet what did they get with Obama? More warmongering. But he got a Nobel Peace Prize. Aren't you sick of that if you're a Democrat? We might disagree. You might want way more socialist policies than me. But nonetheless, we could both agree that we want someone who's not being controlled or hampered by unelected bureaucrats that are breaking the law in order to stymie them. And if you think that they did it to Donald Trump, they won't do it to other people, you're absolutely wrong. That's why Tulsi Gabbard's not in the debate stage. Tulsi's a progressive. She talks about reparations. She talks about Trump being a racist. She talks about immigration, basically wanting to decriminalize illegal immigration and all this stuff. So why is she so different? What's she so different on? Oh, she's anti-war. That's the difference. She went and talked to Assad. Can't have that. Luckily, the media and the Democratic Party itself did a good job of stymieing her and taking her down. If that wasn't possible, like with Trump, then I guess it's time for the FBI to step in. Get some opposition research to spy on her, right? Smear her with the Russia thing. Start leaking to the New York Times the results of your illegal investigation. So that's where we're at today. This is what people are celebrating. Oh, man. Whew. Comey's reputation shot. We got him. We did it. We got him, man. Woo! So stupid. Now, again, I leave room to maybe Comey will be charged with something else. Maybe he'll be charged with something connected to the FISA court. But like I said, you saw Joe Genova, who's seemingly close to Trump or close to people that are close to Trump, who's been one of his bigger advocates. He's saying, it's not important to prosecute people. We just need to restore faith in the system. How can you restore faith in a corrupt system with criminals running it if you don't punish the criminals? All of this corruption, every other video I make is about the corruption. It's in public. I talk about it. Other people talk about it. Is it affecting any big change? How are the polls looking? Are the people that were responsible for this corruption, are they being punished when it comes to voting? No. Are they being shamed and not getting jobs or mobs outside their house? No, quite the opposite. The people that are getting screamed at and heckled and losing their jobs and doxxed, they're all people on the other side, aren't they? But we're out in that corruption. Now look, when I voted for Trump, my number one reason for voting him was outing corruption. But I'm not one of these people that think that it's 4D chess. It's not because Trump was so brilliant. It's Trump's mere existence and winning the election outed the corruption. And that's exactly what has happened. But that's not enough. In some sense, I wonder if, I asked this question last night. People were like, well, think about it this way. If Hillary had won, we'd have never known about any of this. Maybe that's better. Because if the average person wouldn't have heard about this, then at least there's a potential for, in the future, details to be released about corruption and people to be shocked by it. Instead, what do we get? Well, Trump comes out, and the corruption's outed, and no one's punished, and basically the people are like, yeah, I can accept that level of corruption. So if you're the corrupt, you're like, oh my goodness, this is great. What a boon to us. We were worried we were actually going to be punished. Now that we know we're not, sure, you can talk about our corruption. The people take it. Look at the Epstein thing. For God's sakes, 2 cameras malfunctioned outside of his cell, and people just believe it. Oh, okay. Or they don't care. If that level of corruption is allowed to be right in your face, the corrupt people have to be like, this is easy, this is great. We don't have to lie anymore. We just be corrupt. People are okay with it. We control the narrative. No problem. The actual one chance we had, where we had it dead to rights for the legal system to punish the corrupt, they let go. They said, we don't want to look like the bad guys. What was Trump's tweet today? What did he say? Oh, the fact that Barr didn't prosecute Comey just shows how much of a reasonable man he is. Then you get what you deserve, Trump. I'm not going to feel bad then. Oh, but don't worry. And again, maybe something will be done in the future. But I'll tell you this much. There's a far better chance of actual people being held to account over the next IG report if people like me and you and the public say, this is unacceptable that Comey got off the hook. If all of us just say, we trust Trump, trust in the plan, woo, Barr's the man, then what incentive do they have to change anything? Hey, everyone's still celebrating us. And even if we don't charge anyone, then we could look good to the Democrats because we didn't charge people. And our supporters will always say, yay, it's part of the plan. Woo, we damaged Comey's reputation. Hooray. The only way things are going to change is if the average person starts to say, this is garbage. Why is the system different from me than from them? And listen, I understand. Everybody knows that there's a double standard in the legal system. There's a two-tier justice system, right? But it's not two-tier, it's three-tier. And let me explain it to you. It's two-tier in this sense. If you're some schlub like me that's poor and I get arrested, I'm not going to be able to afford a good lawyer. I'm screwed. Whereas if I happen to be rich, then I could get a better lawyer and I would have a far better chance of beating the rap because these lawyers are unbelievably skilled, these defense lawyers, if you have enough money to pay them. But that's just the two-tier. You can still be wealthy and lose. You'd be like Beretta or, there have been people that have been wealthy. R. Kelly's probably going to lose, There's a third tier, and it has nothing to do with money. It has to do with power. Those people don't just beat the rap. They never get the rap. And this isn't just a Democrats or bad thing. That's Republicans too. It's leaders in other countries. It's people not involved in politics that have these connections. The real people that are running the show. Never brought to justice. Ever. Name the last one. The only people with political influence that have actually been charged, just people that happen to be connected to Trump. That's it. No one ever punished. No one. If push comes to shove and it's so blatant, they get some middle or low tier person to throw under the bus. That's it. And when you actually see, it's like, okay, this is why it's so frustrating. Did I think that Hillary Clinton was going to go down when it was Obama's Department of Justice that was doing the investigating? No, I knew it. I knew it was corrupt. You want to talk about obstruction of justice for Trump commenting on the Russia investigation? How about Obama announcing at the beginning of the Hillary investigation, she didn't do anything wrong, but somehow that's not obstruction. Even then when his attorney general meets with Bill Clinton on a tarmac in secret, and then says, I refuse to recuse myself, but I'll listen to what the FBI says, but then has people at her DOJ email the FBI and say, by the way, don't even bother recommending prosecution because we're not going to go through it anyways. But that's corruption you expected. When you get Trump, who was the victim of so much of this corruption, and they blatantly, and by the way, the only person that's professional and awesome in this whole story is I.G. Horowitz. Fantastic man. And I'll get to more why in a minute. But when you get him continually saying, we referred this to prosecution, and the people that Trump appointed that had his Justice Department are like, no. Of course, they're probably not going to prosecute people that are on their side. And that sucks too. Don't get me wrong. But when you actually have the corrupt people that came at you and you're unwilling to prosecute them, I don't know why. Is Barr part of them? Is Trump committing other crimes that he thinks, well, hey, if I let them go for these crimes, they'll let me go for my crimes? I don't know. Does he think that he'll somehow get in the good graces of the CNNs and the New York Times and the entertainment industry? If he's like, hey, here's all this corruption, but I'm not going to prosecute it. Is he frustrated that Barr's not doing anything? Or does he think Barr's doing a good job? Or maybe they're sitting on some secret plan that they're going to get Comey in the long haul. Now, people are talking about McCabe. We also know that McCabe lied to the FBI and lied to Congress. And so far, he hasn't been prosecuted. But I saw this yesterday. And if you watch enough of this stuff, you could read between the lines, right? So I saw a lot of these people. What was the message coming out from like the Trump campaign yesterday? The message had to be, we know people are going to be, this is a huge victory for us. Comey's outed as being this corrupt person. But we know that, we have to placate so we can go on offense with that, but we have to placate the people on our side that are pissed off that once more we decided to let someone off the hook. And so, how can we do that? Well, we'll talk about there was other things going on and this, and we'll talk about McCabe. And I saw this over and over, people going, well, but McCabe better watch himself. The fact that Comey wasn't prosecuted means that McCabe's more likely to, because people were getting upset. What was McCabe lying about again? This is how I know McCabe will be charged. Am I some genius? Mark my words, he will be. Am I some genius? Am I talking to someone with insider knowledge? Is that how I know? No, it's a really simple equation. What was McCabe accused of doing? He was accused of leaking to damage Hillary Clinton. He was leaking about the Hillary investigation. And so, he will be punished. You can't leak to hurt Hillary. When we finally need someone to go down so we can say, see, the powerful are held to account. We'll pick the guy that maybe damaged Hillary Clinton. That's who we'll pick. And mark my words, that'll be how the media spins it. That's what you'll hear. All this bluster from Trump about how the intel agencies were against him. No one from the intel agencies has been charged with any crimes against Trump. But here was someone high up in the intel agency that had a crime basically against Hillary Clinton, and he was charged. That shows that Trump's narrative's garbage. That's exactly how it'll be spun. Exactly. And if you're just looking on it from the outside, sounds reasonable. I guess that could be the case. I guarantee McCabe goes down because of that. And then people say, then I'll have to listen to all these Trump people say, yay, Barr's doing it. They're doing it. Woo! Now people are being held to account. Yep. Lesson learned, if you're in the intel community, don't go against the Clintons. Don't go against the establishment and the Democrats. Oh, you can do whatever you want against Trump, no problem. Heck, even Trump's own people will give you a slap in the wrist. Then you get to go on Twitter and claim you're a hero. You'll sell books, make $1 million. So, there's my prediction. I called it. McCabe will eventually be charged with something because his crime had to do with Hillary and not with Trump. You heard it here first. Meanwhile, all these people, and that's how the Trump people were setting it up. His supporters yesterday. Oh, McCabe will go down. McCabe will go down. So the left will spin this as, see, Trump's narrative is garbage. The only person in the intel community gets charged is for being connected to harming Clinton. And Trump's people say, see, we're finally getting rid of the swamp. We finally got rid of one of them. We got him. We got one. It's just tokenism and garbage. Sure, McCabe should be charged if he lied to the FBI. So should Comey. So then I said I'd talk about Horowitz, right? So Horowitz, he was appointed by Obama, and ironically, it was the Democrats that first called for him to start these investigations because they were upset because of Comey saying that Hillary's under investigation a week before the election. So they said, we want someone to look into the Hillary investigation. The IG says, okay. I read the IG report in the Hillary investigation. It was damning to the FBI. Absolutely damning. Then I watched the media coverage of it. Almost nothing. Oh, no crimes committed. Moving on. That is not what was said. He talked all kinds about how damaging Comey and Strzok and Page and all these other people at the FBI, how they went against protocol over and over and over again. He just couldn't prove it was a crime. It was unethical. It was unprofessional. It was unique and never done in any way like that before. By the way, I didn't need an IG report to tell me that. You know why? Because I have a brain. I have a layman's understanding of how the law enforcement industry works. Here's how it works, right? Let's say there's some guy named Tom who I think's the big drug dealer in my town, and I'm the police going after him. And then I find a guy named, Taylor, who's a low-level drug dealer that I think's working for Tom. And so I arrest Taylor on some charge that I could get him on. And I say, Taylor, we're going to throw you in jail for 10 years. Unless you have something to say about Tom. And then maybe Taylor says something about Tom. But that's not what the FBI did this time, is it? What the FBI did was say, we're going to make sure Tom didn't commit a crime. And so we're going to get Taylor, and we're going to get Rob, and we're going to get Courtney, and we're going to get all these other people, right? We're going to get all these people. and give them all immunity. Y'all get immunity. In fact, not only do you get immunity, give us any potential incriminating evidence on you, and we'll smash that evidence so no one could ever see it. And then we'll see if that results in getting the guy at the top. Does that even remotely make sense? Of course not. And you know how, you know the other way you know that this is the line? Because they did the exact opposite when they were going after Trump, didn't they? Did they say, okay, Flynn, here's immunity. Okay, Manafort, here's immunity. Cohen, here's immunity. Papadopoulos, here's immunity. Now, do you have anything to say about Trump? No. They did the exact opposite. They threw the book at them as hard as possible. They put them in solitary confinement. They raided their house in the middle of the night. So much so that the judge in the Manafort case blatantly admitted it. This isn't about Paul Manafort. This is about you trying to get Trump. That's how you go about an investigation. I mean, even to the point that it was, in my opinion, too strong going after Trump. But if you really want someone, that's how you go after him. So it couldn't be more of a discrepancy how the two... So, of course, when you read the IG report, he correctly is like, wow, this is... I mean, he's professional, but you could tell he's stunned. I cannot believe that... And he, over and over, he's like, this is the only example I can see of the FBI doing this. Yet the media, they control the narrative. People don't know. Ask people what they think about the IG report and Hillary. 95% will say, what? And the 5% that might know something about it will be like, well, he said no crimes were committed. That's exactly how this IG report and Comey's going to go. Give 2-3 weeks. But then even beyond that, the IG report says, and actually, the one area where he couldn't rule out that bias and criminal behavior took place was the FBI sitting on the laptop from Anthony Weiner. That he thought that he could not rule out Peter Strzok's bias influenced that decision. Anybody making a big deal of that? Do you understand the gravity of what's being said? That the FBI leadership made a decision to not look at evidence in the investigation that they had ongoing because they were more concerned with going after Trump. No one cares. After that was released, I listened to people on CNN and other places tell me not only would they not criticize the FBI, but that if I did, and people like me and you did at home, we were hurting America. Because you can't criticize law enforcement. Well, except that guy that shot Michael Brown that Elizabeth Warren lied about and said was a murder. Well, except ICE agents that these people all call Nazis running concentration camps. But you know, you can't criticize the FBI. But Horowitz, after all that, right? So he releases his report. This is just my opinion. But I feel like from reading the report, you could tell Horowitz was like, wow. And so he releases it, testifies in front of Congress. The media spins the coverage like it's not a big deal. And that's it. Horowitz is a professional. Now, he could have did what Bob Mueller did. You remember what happened with Mueller? Mueller gets a report, sends it to Barr. Barr says, basically concluded they weren't convicted of any crimes, even though they couldn't exonerate an obstruction. And Mueller releases a note because he's not happy with how the media is covering his investigation. That's how an unprofessional investigator operates. That's how someone who's just interested in controlling a narrative and bringing someone down operates. Horowitz isn't that. Even though Horowitz might believe, wow, this is incredible, unethical, borderline on criminal behavior by the FBI, when he sees the media go out there and spin it, that this is somehow a win for the FBI, he's just like, okay, that's not my job. My job is gather facts, present facts. People can spin them how they want. The same with this report. If you look at page 12 of the IG report on Comey here, he outlines how, let me start by saying this. Comey's celebrating because they cherry-picked a passage where basically, when he gave Memo 4 was the memo that talked about, for those of you that I'm getting ahead of myself. So he keeps these series of 7 memos, right? And they're all individual meetings he had with Trump, and then he would go home and type up these memos. This is what Comey did. The 4th memo is one where Trump basically said, hey, Flynn's a good guy. Do you think you could let him go? And so Comey thought that was a huge deal because apparently, and I'll get more into this, Flynn's crime was so significant that Comey was freaked out that Trump would ask him that. So he had to memorialize it. And so then the day, basically when Comey gets fired within that week, he's like, okay, I'm going to release this memo 4, to my friend Richmond, who's a Columbia law professor, with instructions to release the contents of the memo to the New York Times, which is exactly what happened. And Comey admits, the reason I did that is because I wanted a special counselor appointed, which is exactly what happened. So Comey got everything he wanted, still not punished for it. Even he couldn't have predicted he would have got millions of dollars on a book deal and still be a hero after all this, but it's exactly what happened. But yay, his reputation's in shatters. Anyways, the IG report said that specific memo 4, did not contain classified information, and so that when Comey's friend gave that information to the New York Times, it was not classified information. That's what Comey released, that cherry-picked that section and said, aha, this is a big win for me. What Comey doesn't say is that 3 of the memos did have classified information in it. And he gave those to people outside of the department, regardless if they were lawyers or not, regardless if they had security clearance or not. They were classified and property of the FBI, not to be seen by anyone outside the FBI. Just because you have a security clearance doesn't mean that you can see all classified or confidential information. It only gives you access to specific types. These people had no right to see this FBI material, which some of it would later be marked as classified in some degree, confidential or secret or top secret. So the truth is, the IG report blatantly says that he gave classified information to people that shouldn't have had it. It's just that classified information wasn't one of the ones he said and released this to the New York Times. What doesn't matter? It's not as if only information the New York Times got was to be scrutinized. In fact, you try it. If you work in a government office, you go and you take a bunch of classified information and then some information that's not classified, give to your friend and say, only release the unclassified stuff to the New York Times. See if that's, but you gave classified information to your friend. Yeah, but he didn't give it to the New York Times, so no problem, right? Oh, yeah, you're right. Our mistake. So Horowitz talks about this on page 12, and he specifically makes it a point to put in the criminal code, USC 18703 DNF. And he puts that code in there and says, this is the code on mishandling classified information. You could do so knowingly or unknowingly. And then the paragraph below it, he says, yeah, exactly, it would go poorly if you're Lolo. And then right after he lists the code, he says, I referred this to the Department of Justice for prosecution. They declined to go forward with it. That's Horowitz to me saying, clearly this is criminal. I gathered the evidence. I found that this was evidence of criminal behavior. I gave it to the prosecutor. The prosecutor said, I'm not going to prosecute. Okay, this is just like a cop. A cop's job or an investigator's job is to investigate, not to prosecute. Unless you're Comey, right? That's what he did. He investigated, gathered the evidence that said basically Hillary Clinton was guilty with the private sector, but then arbitrarily said, and by the way, I'm going to decide not to prosecute by adding things such as intent to the statute. They even changed the term gross negligence because that's blatantly in the statute. So Horowitz is acting not like Comey, not like Mueller, but like an investigator should. Gathered the evidence, looked bad to me, gave it to the prosecutor. Prosecutor said, yeah, we're not going to go forward. Okay. So I had people asking, well, why then, if this is so blatant that he broke the law, why isn't Horowitz talking more about breaking the law? Because Horowitz is a professional. He's not Bob Mueller. He's not going to say, well, I couldn't charge Comey, but here's all the evidence of why I think that there's criminal wrongdoing. His job at that point was to decide, once the DOJ decides not to prosecute, his job is just to gather evidence to see if FBI protocol was followed. That's it, period. That's what an inspector general does. They're the person whose job it is to basically police the police. They're policing the FBI. And it's not just on these cases. There are cases all the time where there's accusations of wrongdoing by intel agencies or the FBI, and the inspector general looks into those accusations. They have two jobs. Did you follow FBI protocol or that agency's protocol? And did you break the law? If we think that you possibly broke the law, then we hand that off to a prosecutor, whether it be the Department of Justice or elsewhere. Otherwise, we just look at whether or not you follow protocol. And Horowitz was a professional who then just talked about protocol. He says several times, I referred this to prosecution, they decided not to prosecute. This does not mean that he did not find evidence of criminal behavior. To the contrary. There were 3 instances of criminal behavior that I could see clearly outlined in the IG report. Though, maybe only 2, and I'll tell you why. Because I can't find the statute for one of them. So let's start. The first was, so Comey, he copied these memos, right? And I'm going to try to I'm not familiar with this. My Gmail is, I tried to message you before. So, one second, let me type this out. This is my Gmail address for those trying to reach me. But anyways, where was I? Let me get a drink. So we're talking about, so we're talking about Horowitz and the crimes that Comey committed. So Comey, the way it works is that I'm not a genius. I'm not involved. I don't have a clearance. So maybe people that do know better than me. But here's my understanding of what happens. So you have like some position in the government where you have like a high security clearance, or you're involved with stuff that the average person doesn't get involved. And then you lose your job, whether you get fired or whatever. There has to be a process where that agency that you worked for basically reclaims all of their material. In other words, you don't just get to roll home with your FBI laptop or with evidence of the case you were working on. Whatever. You have to give all that material back to the FBI. So I forget what SSCI or something like that they call it in this IG report. So basically this person, Comey, gets fired, and so basically the next day the guy goes and changes the lock or locks the door in Comey's office or whatever, until it takes them a couple days to basically get everything out, all the physical papers, all the electronics, etc. out of Comey's office. And you're doing that to make sure that some disgruntled employee doesn't come back in and take classified or even non-classified FBI-owned material, right? This makes sense. In my company, if I get fired, they're probably going to lock me out of my office, even though it's not security clearance or anything like that, just so I can't take stuff that's not mine. Okay, makes sense. After that, what they did was they went to Comey's house and were like, okay, we need any FBI material you have here. Now, what Comey did was, when he made these memos, he'd make 2 copies. He would make a copy for himself, and he would make a copy for I think it was it Baker, the head counsel of the FBI? And so Baker had all of the original copies under lock and key. No one knew, according to them, that Comey had these copies. In fact, Baker and even people like Strzok and McCabe said they didn't know about these leaks to the press from Comey having these second reports until they heard him testifying about it in Congress. And so the IG report says Strzok immediately runs to a phone, calls the Columbian law professor in Richmond and says, we need to come to your house and get this information off your computer because this is FBI material that could infect an ongoing case. In fact, they all say, which I'll get to in a minute, all of them understood. All of them. McCabe, Baker, Rebecki, Strzok, all of them understood this was FBI material and not personal material. These are Comey's friends. They all never had a doubt in their mind. Clearly, this is FBI material. So Comey's excuse, well, I thought they were just my personal property, is garbage. So when this person comes to collect all the FBI material, Comey does not tell him, by the way, I have these memos in my safe. He could have said, I think they're my personal property, but you might want to check. But he didn't. He hid the existence of those memos, that he stored them in his personal property. I believe that's probably a crime. Stealing FBI property and then refusing to hand it over when requested that all FBI property be handed back. I'm guessing that's a crime. Now, I can't find the criminal statute. I looked it up, and we don't have a media worth of crap, so no one has anyone on asking. I wish I had the ability to ask a former FBI agent. I'd be a 10 times better journalist than these people you see on TV. So, I don't know. I don't know what the crime would be, but I'm sure it is one. But let's say it's not. Let's say that's not a crime, okay? That's just a violation of FBI policy. That would be mind-blowing to me. But the second crime that he committed was he took FBI-owned and in some cases classified material and he gave it to people outside of the department, some of which with the express intent to give to the press. That's a crime. Cut and dry. Well, it was classified later. Doesn't matter. That excuse flies out the window as well because in the IG report, it goes meticulously through, well, two things, right? One, who decided what of this information was classified or not? Do you know who decided? It talks specifically in the IG report, it goes through. It was Baker, Strzok, Page, and I forget the fourth person. Basically, Comey's buddies. Now, keep in mind, we now know at this point that the IG has already said that the FBI was horrible in their investigation of Hillary. Who was running that investigation? All these same people in conjunction with Comey. We now know that things like the FISA application, spies being sent to people connected in Trump's team, all of this stuff, we know that was being done by these exact same characters. So they were behaving unethically or criminally together previous to this. But these are the people that are going to determine basically whether or not Comey had this material was classified. And we're supposed to trust them. That'd be like if you robbed a bank with 3 people. Those 3 people just being the ones that get to look at the forensic evidence and make a decision. It makes no sense. Why couldn't the FBI find someone that wasn't connected to any of this to look at this? But instead, it says they were in a hurry, so they couldn't go through the usual channels, so they had to be the ones to decide. Even still, they found some of the material should be classified to some level. So they go to Comey and they say, Comey then has to testify in front of Congress and he says, can I have access to my memos before, because at this point he says, I'll give you my access to the memos back if I could get your memos that you wrote and what's classified and what's not in preparation for me doing this interview with Congress. And so they say, okay. So he finally, at this point, gives his memos back, and he gets to see what's been deemed classified. And he argues with it. He's like, I don't think this should be classified. But it says in the IG report that when talking to the IG, he said he understood, he made a judgment when he took the material, he didn't feel it was classified material. But he also understood that people could disagree. And he knew there would be consequences if people disagreed. In other words, what he's saying is, in my opinion, I felt that what I was doing was totally legit because I didn't find this information classified. But I also understood if I asked other people their opinion, they might say it's classified. And if they say that, I could be in some trouble because a reasonable person could say that. So he knew. So any argument that, well, intent, he didn't know that it was classified, garbage. He knew there was a chance. And he still took this. And even if it wasn't classified, you still can't give FBI material to people outside. Now the argument, like I said, that Comey's making is, yes, but the one memo that I gave, that I said I wanted disseminated to the New York Times, was not classified. So I'm in the clear. No, you still gave 3 of the memos had classified material. You still gave it to 3 people. He gave it to 2 of his lawyers. All 3 of them he claims were his lawyers, but this guy Richmond was also his friend. So 3 people he gave this classified information to. That's illegal. Just because those people didn't turn around and give it to the New York Times doesn't mean that it wasn't illegal for him to give it to these people in the first place. That's a crime. Cut and dry. You don't get to say, but it was my lawyer. No. You weren't involved in a criminal case. This wasn't your defense lawyer. So that's law number 2. Clear, cut, and dry that he broke. Number 3, and this is the worst one of all. He lied to Congress. And I recommend everyone watch. I put up a 10-minute video before I did this live stream. where I actually go through the documents and I can show this, but I'll talk about it here as well. Comey's position is this. I've already talked about how it was from Memo 1, it was a setup, right? Because him and he's talking to all these people at the FBI and they're like, oh, you're going to go talk about the PDCA? You better keep notes in case Trump incriminates himself. That's what this was about. They knew that the information was salacious and unverified, but they wanted to try to set Trump up. Get him furious, accuse him of these heinous things, heinous sex stuff, and see if he reacts in a way that then you could later use to incriminate him. Keep notes, make sure you do it, right? Anyways, so we know that's how it started. With Memo 4, though, this is the one that Comey thinks was like, oh, this was where it went too far. And if you read the memo, this is basically what happened. They're having dinner, and Trump's like, look, I think Flynn's ultimately a good guy. I don't think he was trying to break any laws. Could you basically see your way to letting him go? Which, that's not a good thing for Trump to say, don't get me wrong. But I understand where he's coming from. And I'll get to in a minute why. And Comey apparently is like, this is awkward, no. You know, okay. So Comey thinks this is such a big deal. He admits he immediately went home and he wrote it. And it's funny because Memo 4 is the only memo that specifically says at the bottom of like page 3, it says in parentheses, he wrote, I'm going to leave out details because I want this document to remain unclassified. Which I wrote at the time, which again, I didn't see anyone talking about this. It seemed clear to me that at that moment, Comey knew he would eventually be leaking this to the press. He knew it then. Because up until that point, he admits all of his memos he was writing expressly for other people, high-level people in the FBI. So you would have no reason to write them unclassified. If Comey's just writing a note for McCabe and Baker and Rebecca to read, they all have the same clearance level as him. So he doesn't have to worry. You could write everything you want as detailed as possible because it's just FBI classified material that only people with top secret clearances will be watching. But if you specifically say, I'm writing this one unclassified, that to me shows his mindset was, I'm going to release this to the public. And he almost admits as much to the IG in the report where he says, you know, well, I wrote it unclassified because I knew at some point that there could be a he said, she said, you know, between me and Trump and that I would have to present this. But even still, if it was just to present it in a court or to other members of Congress, then it could have been classified. You wrote it unclassified because you wanted the people to see it, because you knew the importance of controlling the narrative. And you knew that if you convinced people that Trump looked bad, could go to the people with it, that would influence possible impeachment, influence possible election losses, etc. Because you couldn't get him on the legal entrapment that you tried to. So then you took it to the court of public opinion. That's exactly what's going on here. But let's take Comey at his word. Now, we also know from previously in the IG report, they quote Comey specifically, I think it's towards the end of it actually, where he says, no matter, you know, there's a quote, and I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, no matter how justified or angry you are at some decision as an FBI member, you should never leak to the press or leak to people in order to achieve your personal goal of what you think should be done with the case, because it damages the credibility of the entire FBI. So Comey's admitting that the steps he's about to take, he normally says would be incredibly unethical and damaging to the FBI. But he took them anyways. So why did he take them? It's because he thought that Flynn's crime was so heinous and it was so outrageous for Trump to say, look the other way. I mean, if it was just a speeding ticket, then he probably wouldn't have thought, well, this is a big deal. Trump said, let him go in this speeding ticket. It had to be that he thought Flynn's crime was so heinous and it was so terrible for Trump to ask him to let him go on this. Okay. So what was Flynn's crime? Flynn lied to the FBI, supposedly. That was his crime. Now, there's a report of just yesterday, the same day that the Comey IG report came out, that the Inspector General also recommended for prosecution a deputy assistant at the FBI. Here was what his crime was. He was looking at porn on his FBI-issued computer, which apparently you're not allowed to do, I guess, makes sense. And he lied to investigate. He lied to the FBI investigators about it and to the IG. And so then the IG went back and got physical proof and then confronted him with the physical proof. And then this high-level FBI person said, okay, yeah, I did it. And so he was recommended for lying to the FBI. The same crime that Flynn committed. However, the DOJ and Barr decided not to prosecute this FBI agent. Now, it's aggravating because it's a double standard. But you can kind of see, in the grand scheme of things, the underlying crime. Watching pornography. I guess it's not a big deal. It's a big deal in that you want to make sure you could get viruses and this and that and the other, right? Or it could be distracting you from work, whatever. But you see what I'm saying? The underlying charge is not that significant. So, we already know that in that case, the Department of Justice and basically the media and everyone understands, like, well, what was the lie about? Okay, so what was Flynn's lie about then? That Comey felt so justified in breaking FBI protocol, doing what he normally knew would damage the credibility of the FBI. What was this crime that was so heinous? It was a lie. Well, the lie had to be something heinous. So let's go back in time. What was going on with Michael Flynn at the time? So here's what happened. He was the incoming what? Secretary of State, I think? Whatever. I'm pretty sure that was it. But he's incoming to that. Obama, which my feeling, this is kind of an aside, but it was obvious once Trump won that they said, I forget the name of the book, but there's a book, Jimmy Dore talks about it a lot, where they're talking about they were in the room with Hillary and her people when she lost, and their strategy immediately became blame Russia. Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia. So clearly Obama's in on that, in my opinion. And so he starts sanctioning Russia because the narrative starts, oh, Russia, it's Russia's fault. So he sanctions Russia. Flynn, who's the incoming person who's going to have to deal with Russia, talks to his counterpart. And supposedly, this is what the media went nuts on. Before they were actually sworn in, the incoming Secretary of State is talking to his counterpart in Russia and saying, listen, don't freak out and retaliate because of Obama's sanctions, because things might be different under us. That's it. That's the big... And did he say that or not? That's the underlying issue which we're talking about was their lie. Not only is it perfectly normal for an incoming administration to be talking to geopolitical rivals and allies, but it would be preferable to me, that incoming administration, everyone in this country, and even the Obama administration for our geopolitical rival to not retaliate economically or militaristically, or I guess with espionage, against us. Right? And if you don't believe that, why is John Kerry allowed to be in Iran, undermining Trump's policies against Iran? Yet, where's the media? Are they screaming Logan Act? No. And John Kerry's not incoming anything. If Elizabeth Warren wins the election, and she decides they want to reinstate the Iran deal, okay? And after she wins, her Secretary of State starts talking to the counterpart at Iran, I'm not going to be outraged at all. I want them to be. It's not like I want people to be like, okay, you can't talk to anyone, and then day one, you get sworn in, now you start your conversation. That's stupid. You want them to hit the ground running. I might disagree with Warren's plans, but nonetheless, I don't begrudge her and her team reaching out to people. But that's the context of what this is occurring. So Flynn's, the media's going nuts. Violated the Logan Act. He's working with the Russians. Oh my God. Oh, this is true. Can you believe he did this? Oh, blah, blah, blah. Now, Comey admits the way that he sets up Flynn in this interview was unprecedented. He couldn't have got away with it with any other administration, he says, because there was confusion. So what they did was they called Flynn and they're like, hey, we're going to send a couple agents over to talk to you because he's getting smeared in the press left and right. And Flynn's like, and they're like, by the way, don't have a lawyer there. It's not a big deal. We're just going to come talk to you. And he's like, okay, no problem. Because Flynn's thinking, this is absurd. Everybody knows that it's my job to be talking to incoming people. It's not a big deal. The FBI's just coming, just have a friendly conversation with me. Like, can you just tell us what happened? Just to be done with it. He doesn't think that he's under criminal investigation. So he comes. Let me bring it up here. He's accused of lying about, he claimed that he didn't have any conversations about not retaliating against these sanctions, which again, to me is, I hope he had those conversations. But that's what he's accused of lying about, okay? He was charged with lying to them. Let's see, this is now baffling. Despite all of the technology, despite the fact that we all have one of these that could record at a whim any conversation we're having with an individual, the FBI doesn't do that. They don't have audio recording when they interview people. How convenient, this corrupt FBI. We just have to take their word from their notes that they're called 302s. Okay? Now, know this, that the two FBI agents that interviewed Flynn walked out of that interview and told James Comey, we do not believe that he was intentionally lying to us. In other words, he shouldn't be charged. Yet he was charged. So let's see what the actual 302 that were used to get the charges on Flynn, let's see what they say. Okay? The first time they asked him, the interviewing agents asked Flynn if he made any comment to Kislyak about voting in a certain... I'm sorry. This is the part that's relevant. The interviewing agents asked Flynn if he recalled any conversation with Kislyak surrounding the expulsion of Russian diplomats or closing of Russian properties in response to Russian hacking activities surrounding the election. Flynn stated he did not. What did he not? He did not recall. That's what they asked him. Then it says he reiterated his conversation was about, and then it's redacted. Flynn noted he's not aware of the upcoming actions. Then they ask him again, and it's clear that they went in with an agenda, right? So they basically rephrased the question. It says, the interviewing agents asked Flynn if he recalled any conversation with Kislyak in which the expulsions were discussed, where Flynn might have encouraged Kislyak not to escalate the situation, to keep Russian response reciprocal, or not to engage in a tit-for-tat. Flynn responded, not really. I don't remember. It wasn't don't do anything. The U.S. government response was a total surprise to Flynn. So they said, do you recall this? A second time. He says, no, not really. I don't remember. Now, Comey said, I don't remember some 90 times in front of Congress. So did Hillary. So did other people connected to Trump. So did people all over the place. So he's not giving a definitive. He says, they say, do you recall this? He says, no. They say, are you sure? Do you recall this? And he says, no, not really. I don't remember. Then they ask a third time. The interviewing agents asked Flynn if he recalled any conversation with Kislyak in which Kislyak told him the government of Russia had taken into account the incoming administration's position about the expulsions, or where Kislyak said the government of Russia had responded or chosen to modulate their response in any way to the U.S.'s actions as a result of a request by the incoming administration. Okay? Flynn stated it was possible that he talked to Kislyak on the issue, but if he did not remember doing so. Those were the comments that got Michael Flynn arrested. That was deemed lying to the FBI, even though the agents didn't think that he lied. Even though he was told not to have a counsel there. Even though he thought he was just having a conversation and this wasn't some legal process. Even then he was like, they're like, did you do this? He's like, I don't recall. Did you do this? Maybe. I don't remember. Did you do this? I guess I could have, but I just don't remember. That's considered a lie. That's what he was charged with. Now, he pled guilty though, right? Everybody knows what was going on was they had his son on other unrelated crimes and basically told him, we're going to go throw the book at your son if you don't plead guilty to this. Because again, they weren't interested in solving actual crimes. They were interested in making Trump look bad in any way possible. But in order for him to plead guilty, he had to be charged in the first place, right? Now, based on those comments, you think he deserved to be charged? I guess it could have happened, but I don't remember. That's a lie? And no one talks about this. I'm the only person I've heard talk about this. That's the actual 302s from the FBI. That's what Flynn was doing. That's the crime. That's the lie that James Comey thought was so outrageous that he had to violate FBI policy and possibly break the law because he's such a great American. He needed to make sure that Flynn was held accountable to that, and it was unethical for Trump to suggest otherwise. That right there, that's what it was. Those comments. It could have happened. I don't remember, though. So that's Superman James Comey. And people are saying, it's not just Comey saying I deserve an apology. I've seen all kinds of people on Twitter, left-wing media people. Well, okay, maybe it was a little shady against policy, but oh my goodness, Trump's such a tyrant. We had to do this. It was an American thing. He stuck up for America. That's what he did. Okay. So lying to the FBI, I guess, under any circumstance, lying to investigators is such a huge deal. That's what Comey would have us believe. Now let's fast forward to the third crime that Comey committed under the IG report. Page 52. I'm just going to read from it. Comey's June 8th, 2017 testimony. On June 8th, 2017, Comey testified before the SSCI. Comey answered a number of questions from senators concerning the creation, handling, and sharing of the memos, and providing the following information in response to questions from Senator Susan Collins and Senator Blunt. Now remember, this entire hearing was about the New York Times got the access to these memos. It became out that Comey wrote these memos, and so Congress wanted to have a hearing with Comey where they could ask about the memos. That's the entire purpose of this hearing. Lying to Congress, just like lying to FBI, is lying to investigators. It is a crime. Okay? This is Susan Collins. She says, and finally, did you show copies of your memos to anyone outside of the Department of Justice? Comey says, yes. Collins says, and to whom did you show copies? Comey's answer, I asked. The president tweeted on Friday, May 12th, after I got fired, that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night because it didn't dawn on me originally that there might be cooperation for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out in public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. I didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a friend of mine to do it. Collins says, and was that Mr. Witz? Comey says no. Collins says, who was that? Comey says, a good friend of mine who's a professor at Columbia Law. Collins says, thank you. What was the question that Susan Collins asked? Who did you show copies? Comey gives a lengthy response that has nothing to do with the answer and says, I gave them to a friend of mine. Now the truth is, he gave them to 3 friends of his. He lied and intentionally misled Collins. That is more of a lie. Now, I just read to you what was deemed a lie by Michael Flynn. Just read it to you. He said, I guess it could have happened, but I don't remember. That was considered a lie worth turning that guy's life upside down, charging him with this crime. He went bankrupt defending himself from it. Ruined his entire job. Ruined his name. Because he said, it could have happened, but I don't remember. That was the lie. When point blank, Susan Collins asked Comey, who did you give these to? And he says, I gave them to one friend of mine. That is a lie. Now, when you hear Joe Jojoba out there and all these people, whether they be Republican or Democrat, yesterday and today and from here on out saying, well, you know, it was unethical and it was bad, but they don't have enough to prosecute Comey. Garbage. Just like with the Hillary thing. Well, you know, what is intent and blah, 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 blah. You don't have to make it complicated. He lied to Congress. Cohen lied to Congress. What did Cohen lie to Congress about? He said, we stopped talking about Trump Tower on this date. And it turned out he was wrong. It was actually 2 months after that. Bam! Under arrest. Looking at 2 years in prison. For that one lie. That's less of a lie than what Comey just told. How many people did you share this with? One guy. Now, Comey says he has 2 excuses for why he told this lie. And I'll read them. Comey told the OIG he did not tell Senator Collins about sharing 4 of the memos with 3 of his attorneys because Comey was, quote, trying to answer the question he was asked and not reveal confidential communications with my lawyers. Absolute garbage. The question asked was, who did you give this to? He says, I gave it to one guy. I'll read the rest of this and explain why it's garbage. Comey said that in his view, there's a distinction between communication to his lawyers for the purpose of obtaining legal advice and communications to another person who happens to be one of his lawyers to accomplish a task for him, which was acting at his discretion to release something to the media. Comey told the OIJ that he referred to Richmond as a friend rather than as his attorney in the SSCI testimony because Comey didn't consider that what he asked Richmond to do privileged, and Comey didn't intend to insert any kind of privilege about the direction towards Richmond. Here's why this is garbage. He says, I didn't want to talk about what I gave my lawyers. Richmond is his lawyer. So he talked about one lawyer. One of the lawyers, he said, go to the New York Times with this. The other lawyers, he didn't say that. So he says, oh, I didn't want to talk to him about privileged conversation with my lawyers. But I consider this guy not just a lawyer, but a friend. Ridiculous. And even still, it doesn't matter if you shared it with your lawyers. Then you answer to Collins like this. I gave it to 3 of my attorney friends. One of which was also a friend of mine that I said to release stuff to the New York Times. That would be the truthful answer. Saying you only gave it to one person is a lie. Comey was not under investigation. He was not under a criminal prosecution. So he doesn't get to give classified information to friends of his who just happen to be lawyers. When you're asked, who did you give the information to, you don't have confidentiality in that case because they weren't operating as a lawyer for your criminal defense. He lied. And then Comey goes on. Comey also said the reason he did not clarify that he'd shared more than one memo with more than one person was that they didn't ask follow-up questions. Comey said that if they pressed and asked follow-up questions, he would have said something like, well, other than confidential communications with counsel or something like that. So there, Comey shoots his first excuse down because he knows he could have said, oh, I gave it to confidential communications with counsel. And he says they didn't ask follow-ups. That's not an excuse. Collins' question was, who did you show copies to? He says one guy. She shouldn't have to say, was there a second guy? Yeah, there was a second guy. Was there a third guy? Yeah, there was a third guy. And then it turns out there was a fourth guy. Well, they should ask to follow up if there was a fourth guy. That's not how things work. He lied. He says there weren't follow-ups. That's a lie again. That was a lie to the IG, but here. So Senator Blunt, after Collins. This is from his testimony in Congress. Blunt, you said something earlier I don't want to fail to follow up on. You said, after you were dismissed, you gave information to a friend so that friend could get that information into the public media. Comey says, correct. Blunt says, what kind of information was that? What kind of information did you give to a friend? Comey replies that the Flynn conversation, that the president asked me to let Flynn, I'm forgetting my exact words, but that conversation in the Oval Office. That is another lie. He gave 3 memos to that friend. Only one of them having to do with Flynn. So he lied again. Collins says, what kind of information did you give your friend? He says information about Flynn. That's not true. He gave him much more than that. So he lied a second time to the follow-up question. It's cut and dry. People want to bog down in the specific. Well, but he was an OCA and he had the power to determine what was classified. It wasn't classified until after he gave it, and there's questions, and it would just be a really hard prosecution. It would just be very difficult. He lied to Congress. I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth, but it's your fault for not asking more follow-up questions. That's not a defense. A prosecutor would laugh at that. And Flynn was charged with the lie when he said, I guess that could have happened. I don't remember. No one said, oh, well, don't prosecute for that. Again, time and time and time again. How many videos will I do where the exact same law that someone connected to Trump is accused of breaking and held to task for is broken more severely by people that are against Trump, and the people against Trump are never punished for it, ever. Failing registers of foreign lobbyists, Manafort, sitting in prison over it, Podesta Group gets to retroactively fail paperwork. Lying to Congress, Cohen, jail for it, Brennan, Comey, Clapper, no problem. So far, McCabe, no problem whatsoever. Lying to the FBI, Flynn gets charged with it. Mills, Abedin, Hillary, no problem. They don't get charged with it. Trump's supposedly in trouble for obstruction for mean tweets and firing. Comey, Hillary's team deletes subpoenaed evidence, no problem whatsoever. Over and over and over. Trump's team's investigated for 3 years because of supposedly trying to get dirt on Hillary from Russians. Hillary's team pays and actually does get dirt on Trump from Kremlin agents. No investigation whatsoever. Every single time they accuse someone on Trump's team of something, they've done the same or worse. Every single time. And they are never held to account for it. Here's another example. Why is it And I mean, there's 4 people watching this right now. I might get 40 people to watch this video. Have you heard anyone? Have you heard anyone talk about this? Have you heard anyone talking about his lies to Susan Collins, Comey's, in this report? Anyone on the national media? I haven't. I've heard them just say, some say, yes, he had classified information, he should be prosecuted. And most say, well, it was unethical, but it wasn't prosecutable. Or just the straight up people that are like, Comey's a hero, Trump, orange man bad. But I haven't heard anyone talking about him lying to Congress. Why is that? Why can these people repeatedly, over and over, remember Clapper? Is the NSA collecting data on Americans? No, not willingly. Whoops, lie. He ever get punished for that? Nope. Remember all Brennan's lies? Now we got Comey's lies? No problem. But I'm to believe things are different now. Things are going to change. The corruption will end. Now people will be held accountable in the future. Why would anyone with half a brain believe that? Who did you give the information to? I gave it to a friend of mine. That's a lie. That's you don't have to. I could prosecute that case. When the Flynn situation happened, no one talked about it. Everyone was just like, well, Flynn pled guilty. Clearly it was a crime. No one actually looked at the 302s. I didn't see one person in the national media. I'm not making this up. Here, hopefully this posts, but here's the link. Read it yourself. I'll post it in the chat, the link to... That's the 302s. Read it yourself. See what the lie is that Flynn did. I didn't make up those words. Yes, a skilled prosecutor could say, even with those words, we could still charge you. The point is that if a skilled prosecutor could do that, then clearly they could get Comey for his words. But Trump says Barr's just proven to be a reasonable person. To who? What do they expect? CNN to be like, wow, good, yeah, hey, you know what? We here at the New York Times would just say, we're so sorry. All of the articles we had about how Barr's terrible, all the articles we had about how Trump's terrible and victim, we take it all back. How reasonable of them to point out these crimes that Comey committed but not prosecute him. It's very reasonable of them. Is that what Trump thinks is going to happen? Now I know that there are people out there that are like, well, here's the deal. Trump and Barr are going to bring the hammer down when the next IG report comes. And by not prosecuting here, it basically allowed people to say, the opponents, to not criticize the IG. That they'll say, oh yeah, we'll take the IG report. It didn't say any criminal behavior. And so, therefore, they kind of defended the IG. And so then when the next report comes out, and they do bring these criminal charges, then they already said that the IG was fair and unbalanced and Barr was fair. They're not going to do that. You think that they're going to be held to all of a sudden, they're not going to be hypocrites all of a sudden? All of those stories, those double standards I just told you, with the media and the entertainment industry and academia and Silicon Valley backing 100%, with the corruption and the double standard in your face, and they've been totally against Trump and they haven't talked about it and even said to even question what the FBI did was to hurt America. You think all of a sudden now they're going to be, the IG was reasonable on the Comey report, so now everything that follows is going to be more reasonable. If that's Trump's team strategy and they're letting people get away with blatant crimes for that reason, they're inept. There's no two ways about it. Or I heard this, well, they're letting him off on these charges because they might be slightly harder to prosecute than the bigger charges that they're going to get him on like next month. That's not how it works. You charge with all the crimes. You get caught for speeding, then they search your car and they find out you got a DUI. They charge you with it's not like, well, DUI will let you go in the speeding. Particularly when you're not sure if you could get them on the DUI. You get them with the crime that you know you could get them in hopes that then maybe, at least if you feel that there's a chance you can't get the bigger crime, they'll plead guilty to the smaller one. You don't just say, we won't charge you with anything except the highest crime. That never happens. That's why if you see a murder trial, they're always charging like murder plus, illegal possession of a weapon plus aggravated assault Because it's like, we're going to try to get you with the highest possible thing. But if not, there are these fallbacks that are easier to prove. He lied to Congress. I just showed you. There's no mincing words about it. Him saying, well, I thought that it was okay to not mention my lawyers. If they would have asked follow-ups, I would have mentioned them, though. No, that's not a legal defense. You could try, but you're going to lose. But they let him off the hook. I feel like Dennis Green, which if Tom still wasn't. He is who we thought he was. And we let him off the hook. So nothing's going to change. And, again, I would guess most of the people that watch my videos are Trump supporters. Most of them believe at some point that there was some kind of unethical or illegal behavior that went on with the Russia investigation towards Trump. They don't want to hear this from me. You want to believe, oh yeah, the people that are criminals, that these powerful criminals will be held to account. And they may be. I'm not saying they definitely won't be. But I see no evidence of it. None. You have people like Joe Genova out there saying, oh, they're not going to prosecute anyone. I just don't care. Yeah, I know you'd appreciate that, Tom. They don't care. Nothing's going to change. And it's, and like I was saying earlier, like I'm reaching out to like people in the Republican Party. It is so frustrating to me. Why is it that me, some guy on a chair that does this in my free time, I have Fridays up. I could go into work today. I got to be there at 3 o'clock. I work 60, 70 hours a week, if not more. I have a life. I just bought a house. I'm dead broke. I spent thousands of dollars running for Congress, knowing that I probably had no chance. I had people offer to donate me money, and I said no, because I was trying to run my campaign. And Tom knows, he was there with me. We tried to run it in a way we want to see things ran. It was our service. We didn't want to spend money. And we knew the chances of us winning were almost none because we were unknowns. Not because we didn't have good ideas, not because we didn't have good messaging and campaigning, because we did. I would argue we had the best of anyone. I was the only one who got a standing ovation at the convention when I gave my speech. We were the only ones that had actual, to the day, what we would do if we won the primary to go out there and win the general election. We knew the issues better than almost everyone there. But I knew we still had almost no chance because we're unknowns. We're young. Okay, that's fine. We still went ahead and did it. Thousands of dollars in the hole. I get my days off. I'm doing these videos. I'm driving 5-6 hours away to go to Republican meetings to talk to people. Because I think that things like this story and the Epstein story and the Kavanaugh story and the Covington kids and the story about Google being able to switch 15 million votes, I think those are huge stories. I'm worried about things like the Green New Deal. But more than that, it's the corruption and the unethical nature of these type of things, the stories I was talking about. And there are people that are paid handsomely, journalists or pundits or people working within the Republican Party or just even outside the establishment Democratic Party. Where are they? Did you ever hear anyone go through the 302 on Flynn? You hear anyone go through the testimony of Susan Collins or the interview of Susan Collins in Congress with Comey? Nowhere. Do you hear them talking about the deletion of subpoenaed evidence? Have you heard them talk about Paul Combetta, the guy that did it? See, the FBI originally said, oh, here's why they didn't charge people with the deleted evidence, right? It was because they just had this pile of evidence over here, these emails, that were meant to be deleted. And then Congress subpoenaed the emails, and Combetta had an oh shit moment, where he said, oh, I forgot months ago I was supposed to delete these emails. So then he deleted them. Only that story falls apart because we then find out because some lady on Reddit, no professional, just someone like me, finds out that this guy had a Reddit name called, his name was Stone Tier. And the day before he used Bleachbit to delete all these emails, he's on Reddit asking, how do we take a very VIP's name off an email chain? Because they had these emails and they want to say, oh, Hillary wasn't involved in any of these emails. So if you take her name off the email chain, then we don't have to send these over. Hillary had no connection with them. Well, when he was basically told it's near impossible or it's very difficult, then he decides the next day to Bleachbit him. Now, why would he be on there asking how to take a specific name off a pile of emails that he was planning on deleting anyways? But the FBI didn't find that information out. They didn't talk about that. That was one lady on Reddit. You hear people talking about that? Nope. None of them. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Do I have access? Do I have more free time? Am I smarter? Do I have more connections? Do I have, like, some kind of better internet access than these people? And that's why I just don't... This idea of, finally, Comey's reputation's in tatters. It's garbage. It is absolute garbage. Nothing's going to happen. His reputation is not in tatters. McCabe's reputation's in tatters. What happened with him? Oh, he got hired by CNN. The in-crowd still is going to like Comey. Even more now. Oh, wow. He risked actual criminal prosecution to take down Trump. Awesome. Yes, the people that didn't like Comey will continue to not like Comey. You know, and then the last thing people say about this to me is like, well, this corruption can only occur for so long. We can only blatantly see these crimes be put forth in public before the people get mad and rise up. Are you kidding me? Really? You think that's going to happen? Let's go back to, I've been talking about this for weeks now. Let's go back to Rotterdam, right? UK, probably the most similar country to the United States. Thousands of girls, underage girls, raped over a 3-decade period in all sorts of small cities all through the UK. Reports show this isn't a conspiracy. Not only did it happen, but the police knew and the politicians knew. And they didn't say anything in part because they didn't want to be called racist. I feel also in part probably because a bunch of these people at the top, like the Epstein-type characters over there, probably involved in some of it, but I don't have proof of that. Nonetheless, even if what the official investigation found, that these people knew about it, but allowed it to occur because they didn't want to be personally insulted. Then we have stories of parents that went to the police. My daughter's being raped. I heard one story. Someone told that the rapist called his house on speakerphone while they raped his daughter so he could hear. That's happening over and over again. You go to the police do nothing. Sometimes they arrest your daughter because she was drunk. She's a 13-year-old drinking, not the 12 guys that gang raped her, right? Then you get pissed, so you take matters into your own hands. You get arrested. Then after all that, 3 decades of this, it comes forth, yeah, sorry, the police and politicians knew about it, but we decided it was worth those girls getting raped because we didn't want to be called bad words. Now, if you told me that, and I was an outsider and I wasn't following things and as cynical as I would, I'd be like, my God, there'll be 10 million people in the streets tomorrow demanding every single rapist and politician and police officer that knew about this and covered it up be held to criminal justice immediately. Yet that didn't happen. You know what did happen, though? We saw a lot of people protesting Tommy Robinson, who might be an unethical guy who said things I don't like. They protested him, didn't he? Because he had the nerve to call out the rapist. Now, if thousands of little girls, underage girls, could get gang raped with the police and the politicians knowing about it, and that be outed to the public, and no one say a peep, do you really think that the United States is that different? That we're going to look at corruption? Oh, you mean James Comey and the FBI and Obama's agencies illegally spied on Trump, and no one got prosecuted? Ooh, we're going to take to the streets. Please. Not a chance. If you can't get people to demand justice for underage girls being raped, how the hell are you going to get justice for something like this? That's not to say that this situation isn't frightening. It is the end of our democracy. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're a candidate. What's your issue? Climate change? Minimum wage? You want a $20 minimum wage? End of the foreign wars? Any progressive cause you want. Any conservative. You're pro-Second Amendment? You will only be allowed to pick from people that are pre-accepted by the corrupt people that are running the show. Period. So if you're someone like me that's tired of foreign regime change wars, sorry, your opinion doesn't matter. Tulsi Gabbard, hit the bricks. I say it again and again. When was the only time you could open the New York Times or MSNBC or CNN and see them praising Trump? When he was dropping bombs on Syria. Finally, he's acting presidential. Which I think is the low point in his presidency, which I took him to task and still would take him to task for. That's when you're presidential, when you're dropping bombs. Never mind that we now know, whoops, turns out, looks like that gas attack that we dropped those bombs on the Assad for was staged. That's what independent investigators working for the UN have decided. Oh, well. That was presidential, though. So my voice, I happen to take an issue that the establishment's not going to ever leave, whether it's a Republican or Democrat. Or how about banning the Federal Reserve? Or not bailing out bankers? Holding bankers to account to commit crimes? Holding wealthy pedophiles account to commit crimes? Nope, those aren't on the agenda. Sorry. So you just hope, whatever your issue is out there, and you might hate Trump and you say, screw it, I don't care. Yay, Comey. Yay, Brennan. Yay, Clapper. Yay, CIA. Yay, FBI. Good job to the UK intel agencies that helped set up Papadopoulos. Yay, because I don't care if it's shady or not. I hate Trump. It's worth it. Just remember, that's going to happen to your candidate when you get someone that you really like. Or unless you happen to choose a candidate that they like. That's it. And I don't know what to say. And you see, the most frustrating thing to me is, I'm cynical, but you still had some hope with all this stuff being released that at least Trump's people would prosecute, would go after. And maybe a shady judge would throw out the case. But at least they would be prosecuted. Everyone says, well, it's more, the narrative's important and outing the corruption and, restoring faith. None of that will be done. What's the narrative right now? The narrative is Barack Obama's scandal-free presidency. No one in Obama's orbit was convicted. You have the chance to change that. At least you could have charged him. They could have said, well, this charging was politically inspired and it's garbage and blah, 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 and Comey didn't break the law. Okay. Well, then that could be true of the Flynn and Papadopoulos. Right? They take it at face value. If someone's charged, that proves that the people they're connected to, there's something shady going on. I can hear that from normal people all the time. Oh, you think the Mueller investigation was a witch hunt? Look at how many people were charged. That proves it wasn't a witch hunt. What? 12 Russian trolls? Cohen? For what? Lying? Papadopoulos for lying? No one was charged with the original crime. You raided Cohen's house in the middle of the night? You got Manafort for crimes he committed 10 years ago? And by the way, everybody knows all this crap happens all the time, failing to register as a foreign lobbyist. You and me both know that you raid any billionaire or establishment politician's house in the high levels of politics, you raid their books right now and you'll find some sort of crime. You know it. 90% of the time. We know it. So if you have an agency that's willing to just go after the people they dislike, and when people they like are accused, they let them off the hook, what do you think's going to happen? Now, does that mean we should excuse the people that have committed crimes? No, throw them all in jail. Charge every one of them. I'm fine with that. But it's the double standard that's even worse. You would rather no one be charged than there be a double standard. And it couldn't be more obvious. It's out there in your face. And people that, are Trump supporters, I have them telling me, you've lost the faith. It's all part of the big plan. How could you put that much faith in anyone? I put my faith in myself, my family, friends of mine, my philosophical and religious beliefs. That's about it. I'm not going to put my faith in any politician, no matter how much I like them, in any governmental system. I see facts. I look for evidence. I look at facts. When I see the facts show that someone broke the law, I feel that those people should be held accountable. I don't feel that, I just have to have faith that there's some grand game going on behind the scenes. It's 4D chess going on, and yes, this person's guilty, but they're a small fish, so we have to let them go now. We have to keep letting these people go and keep leaving the people connected to Trump against solitary confinement. Just keep it up, and then bam, one day, we're going to out all these evil Satanists and blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I don't buy it. You might be a good person and you buy that. But to me, that is no different than just being religious. You have faith without logic that something's going to happen. You have no proof. You're just on faith alone. And I don't operate that way. How hard would it be to get someone, like if you believe in this Q and stuff like that, how hard would it be to get someone that's like, hey, there's going to be a lot of information coming out that makes us in the intel community look bad. There's going to be a lot of people really upset and calling for our prosecution. Here's what we do. Let's just pretend that we're some super involved conspiracy, and we'll talk to these people and be like, oh, yeah, they're all going to go down. But follow the plan. And then every time one of us, gets outed as committing a crime, we'll just tell the people, no, you don't want them prosecuted. It's part of the plan. They're just slow. Trust us, it's part of the plan. That's equally as likely as what they believe. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to crap on people, In some sense, I'm a conspiracy theorist as well. I get it. It's hard to not believe anything, is on the up and up when it comes to government. I agree. And it's nice to have hope and think that finally justice is going to be served. But I'm going to stick to the facts that I can see. I'm not going to put faith in something and justify letting people like Comey that blatantly broke the law off the hook. I'm going to end here soon. Here's a little homework assignment for you. You watch today. You watch today and the rest of the... It's Friday, so, the news cycle will be ending. Watch how many people say, well, it would have been hard to prosecute Comey. The classified information wasn't classified at the time, blah, blah, blah. But that's okay. The important thing is his reputation's in tatters. See how many people talk about him lying to Congress. See if you could find one in the national media. I didn't make it up. I went through the damn document with you. Word for word. It's there, plain as day. But no one will talk about it. Just like no one talked about the Flynn document. Everybody just gets their information. It's like the media. No one researches and looks at the specifics. They just get their information from other people in the media. And I'll tweet it out, and I'll put a video, and 40 and 50 people will see it, and one person will respond to my tweet. And that's it. I mean, I've been doing this YouTube channel for over a year. I just have video after video outlining all this corruption. It's so much that sometimes I go back and look at my videos and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like, for example, when this situation came up, I forgot that I wrote this big long thing about, when the memos first came out of Comey, it seems like that memo 4, where he specifically puts in parentheses, I'm writing this as unclassified. It seems like his intent, while he wrote that memo, was for members of the public to see it. In other words, he planned on leaking that memo as he was writing it. Before he was fired. That's why he wrote it that way. I wrote that back in 2017. Or 18, whatever that was. Never heard anyone else talk about it. You forget about it. Gone. The Flynn business. I wrote about this months ago. I talked about it. I did a video on it. You forget about it. No one else talks about it. If you're going to follow people, I recommend following Dan Bongino. I think he's pretty good. John Solomon at the Hill's pretty good. Sarah Carter's good. If you're more liberal and you're interested in the Russia hoax, Aaron Mattei he used to be in Democracy Now! Jimmy Dore, who's a comedian who's great. They're progressives. They hate Trump. But they've been on how this Russia hoax is terrible. But that's it. It's a handful of people. And I don't understand why. I mean, I guess I'll just say that. I'll just end with this, right? Like, when I talk about, I have no faith in Barr at this point. I don't. Which is fine. It's the same, I have no faith in the Pittsburgh Pirates ever making the playoffs again in my life. Right? The Pittsburgh, they're my favorite team. They're probably never going to make the playoffs in my lifetime again. But they could. I just have no faith in the ownership group. That doesn't mean something couldn't happen. But I know there's a better chance that the ownership group does something if enough of us fans get furious and demand that they make changes. It's the same way here. I'm not just going to put my faith in Barr and assume, that's okay. He keeps leaving people off the hook, but he'll eventually get around to them. No, I'm going to hold him accountable just like I would anyone else if I voted for them or not. He's leaving obvious, powerful criminals off the hook right now. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. Maybe he'll go after him in the future. But he's not now. And me calling him out now is not hurting the chances. It's only helping the chances that he eventually goes after people. And if he doesn't, at least someone like me stuck to my guns and didn't just celebrate a cult of personality. But just because I have no faith doesn't mean that I'm going to stop trying. I'm doing my best. I'm trying, I talk to people, Republican, Democrat, people of all stripes. I'm a Republican. I talk specifically about, sorry about that. I talk specifically about things like, well, even if you're not Republican, I'm not even saying you have to vote Republican, but here's what should concern you about our system. If you're a Democrat, here's the changes I think you should be demanding of the Democrats. Like, I'm trying my best. I'm going out there. I spent my money. I haven't got a dime. I'm spending my free time. I'm trying to talk about this stuff. And it's like yelling at a wall, but I'm not going to stop. And, I recommend other people go out and talk about how bad this is. If you can't do YouTube videos, just talk to people in your life just about how ridiculous this is. Don't listen to just people like me. Look at the evidence yourself. Read the IG report yourself. I know we don't all have time, but it's actually a quick read. It's 83 pages, but like 20 is an appendix. Read the 302s on Flynn. Read the Mueller report. Don't just listen. These people in the media, there's very few of them that do the work themselves. They're just repeating what other people say and putting their spin on it. So, it's going to take... I'm not confident that people are going to be in the street. I don't want to see any violence at all. And I'm not saying there should be. But it starts with people. There has to be a bridge between the professional class of people that are supposed to be investigating the news, even the rare good ones there are, and the people that just have no interest in watching any of that stuff. There have to be people in the middle like us that are willing to go out there and say, I'm going to look at this information. I'm not just cheering for a team. I'm trying to call out what I see as corruption. I think that it is absurd to think that the two cameras outside Epstein's cell both malfunctioned at the same time. You don't have to be a genius to understand how ridiculous that sounds. But we have to believe what these people are telling us about the official story. It takes people like us that say, look, I just did a little bit of research, and I found how ridiculous this is. So, I don't know. It's a frustrating day. It's something that, it sucks to see. Some people are happy. Some people think it's a win. Yay, we saw more corruption yesterday with the IG report. Yay, more of it was outed. I'm more concerned with, add that to the pile of like 50,000 pages I have of all the corruption that's been outed, and still not one person charged. Not one. Over and over, we're given every excuse. Well, we couldn't charge it this time. This time we couldn't. Next time we'll get them, though. Oh, their reputation's in tatters. Their cushy job at CNN must be terrible. The millions of dollars that Comey got from his book must be terrible. Must be terrible to be him. His reputation's in so much tatters that he's out there tweeting demands for apologies today. Yeah, I can go to Twitter. I can go right now. It won't take me 30 seconds to go to Twitter and find all sorts of people that I follow, because I follow people on the left, too, that are just going to... Hey, here's one. Jonathan Haidt, Norman Ornstein. Our entire government, but most appalling, our system of justice is systematically being undermined by Trump and Barr, with not a single Republican, not Sass, Grassley, Collins, Alexander, Murkowski, Lee, or others who have professed integrity or independence, doing a thing. Now, this came out yesterday, after the Comey report. After we find out that the head of the FBI violated policy, was referred to for criminal prosecution, and Barr declined to prosecute. What's the left take on it? People that I respect on the left. Yeah, the real corrupt people are Trump and Barr. But you're right. Comey's reputation's in tatters. I told people I was on Above Top Secret talking about this. They were going about it. I was like, give it 5 minutes. You're going to have some leftists coming on here and say, aha, vindication for Comey. Exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. I said, it won't just be here. It'll be over the media. That's exactly what happened. But his reputation's in tatters. Was Clapper's reputation in tatters when it was shown that he blatantly lied about your rights, your Fourth Amendment right to privacy, when he said, no, the NSA doesn't collect data on you? And then it turned out that was a lie? Is his reputation in tatters? Nope. He's still doing the media circuit. He's still living lavishly and comfortably. Is he worried he's going to be prosecuted for lying to Congress? Nope. But, people supposedly that are with me and wanting to end corruption, they celebrate that stuff as a victory. That's not a victory. The outing of more corruption and being told once more, but there's nothing we could do about it. That's not a victory. They control the narrative. I'm talking to 8 people. They're talking to millions. They got the media. They got every celebrity. They got academia. They got Silicon Valley. I'll be allowed to talk to you 8 people until it's determined that maybe I would make some sort of difference, and then I'll be censored by Silicon Valley. But it's a victory for us. The corruption's been outed. Now things will change. So, I don't know. It's frustrating. I guess I'm glad that the report showed the corruption of Comey, but honestly, most of us knew it already. It didn't, it clearly, it has more gravitas, and it's an official professional investigator who's unbiased, so that's definitely more important than someone like me saying something, but there really wasn't anything in there that I hadn't been talking about. I wrote on Above Top Secret when Comey was doing his testimony in front of Collins that he was lying. Not about that specific issue, because I didn't know he gave it to 3 people. But that he was lying, saying that none of it was classified. So, keep on keeping on. I sound really depressed and angry, but trust me, my home life is fantastic. I like my job. I have 2 moron dogs that I kind of like that I have to leave out here before I head to work. And I'm going to keep doing videos. I'm going to keep going to events. I'm going to keep reaching out to people just about how corrupt this is. But I'm still going to live my life, and I'm still going to have fun. But, it's frustrating. It's a frustrating day. And just don't get it twisted. Comey has every right to demand an apology. Well, that's not the right way to put it. He has every expectation to demand an apology. He won. Comey won. Period. He won. He got everything he wanted. He wanted a special counsel. Got it. In fact, he got his best friend and mentor, James Comey, or Bob Mueller. He wanted Trump's administration stymied. Got it. They lost the 2018 election, 3 years of investigation on something he knew was untrue, that his team conspired with Russians. He wanted to become famous and sell books. Got it. Book deal, made millions of dollars. He wanted the people that hated him after his Hillary thing to now be his friends and really like him and look up to him. Got it. He's a hero from the people on the left. And the only thing at the end of the day was I might have to fight a criminal charge to get all that stuff. Nope, doesn't even have to fight that. So he wins. He is a scumbag. He weaponized, it's the biggest political scandal of our lifetime. He, under Barack Obama, weaponized the most powerful investigative agency in the history of the world to go after a political opponent for personal reasons, and he won. He got away with it. The only thing they didn't achieve was stopping Trump from being elected. Other than that, they stymied much of his agenda. They forced him not to be an anti-war president, like he was saying he wanted to do in the second debate. Granted, he hasn't gotten us any wars like Obama did, but he still bombed Syria. To this day. And they're probably going to lose the 2020 election. They lost 2018. It all worked. And the added bonus of the corruption's out there and the people have accepted it. And so now they don't even have to fear the explosion of corruption. He won. Now, might he lose the next round? Possibly. But with the same players, with Barr, why would things be different? Remember what Joe Genova said. There's all kinds of political ramifications of charging people like James Comey and having indictments of these people. It's more about just exposing the corruption and giving people faith in the system. So don't be expecting a lot of indictments. Okay. You keep on keeping on. I'm sure that'll restore people's faith in the system. So, I'm going to keep fighting. I think it's terrible. I'm pessimistic that actual people will be held to account. I'm optimistic in that this is more proof that the things that I've been talking about in the corruption, again, have been proven true. Again. And we'll continue. We'll start to see about how Joseph Mifsud and the whole Papadopoulos thing's a sham. That's why Mueller didn't charge Mifsud, who's supposedly the Russian behind the start of the entire thing, about the claims of Russia hacking emails. So you know it's corrupt from the get-go, and now it turns Mifsud's own lawyer saying actually he was Western intelligence, which is probably the case. We're going to see, like I've been saying since 2017, that using the dossier for the FISA warrant was horribly corrupt and the biggest political scandal in the history of our country. We're going to see that. It's small vindication for me. Yeah, I was right, and no one gets punished. That's the most likely outcome. So, whatever. But I'll keep doing my part to expose corruption. I guess I'll just have to run for president the next time, because at least I have faith that I would expose the corruption. So, I don't know. We'll see. I probably don't have much chance to win. I don't have many connections. So, but thanks, everyone. If you like this, please follow me on BitChute. It's just Robert Knorr, one word at BitChute. The R and the N are capitalized. Please like and subscribe. I go to these political events. I would like to live stream from them, but until I have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, I can't. So if you could recommend me to some other people, it would be really appreciated. And I'll be putting more material up. Try to put at least something up every other day. Honestly, the way my schedule is, you could look for more material kind of like Wednesday, Thursdays, Fridays, because those are the days I usually have off. But, I'll try my best to get material out there. And, just remember, as always, don't just take my word for it. Look at the information yourself, but, ask yourself, why is it that someone like me could talk about stuff that I was talking about today that is just even Trump supporters out in the national media aren't talking about? I don't know. It seems sad to me, but thanks again, everyone, and have a good one.